afternoon. It's 2 o'clock and it's time for demo. So before we get that, I have a couple of announcements. First, welcome back to our live streaming audience. The live stream today is sponsored by the Psychonomic Society. We're very grateful for their support. I have two announcements. The first one is that the exhibitors will be closing right after this afternoon's poster session. A number of you have reserved books, so you need to be sure and go by and pick those books up. And if you saw books that you might be interested, you might want to go by and see if they would be willing to have you carry them home rather than them carry them home. So be sure and take advantage of our exhibitors before the end of the poster session. Secondly, I have the results from the NITOP Nearly Impossible Trivia of Psychology. The highest scoring table was 6 out of 8. So 75%, that's a C. The best, just to let you know. So you all need to work harder next time. But it was Pavlov's Pals. So Rob Flint, Mike Holzheiser, Eric Hessler, Cassandra Doming, looks like, Amy Walker, Katie Gerst, Rick Lakaya, and Lick and Laura, and then John Scalzi. So if you'll see me, I have drink tickets for you. And then we always give a participation prize for people who are willing to turn their results in. And so we picked one at random, and they're uniquely named the psychologists. Victor Benassi, Catherine Overson, Tom Capo, and Teresa Capo. So you also have drinks for tickets. So now I'm going to turn it over to Ken for demo.
Hello everyone here in the room and those who are joining us remotely. You just experienced NITOP, and now it's time for demo. So this is a demo that you can be able to pop right into your class. This is something we're going to do about 15 minutes for each presenter, and just one question, then we'll move on to the next one. So that as the presenters can come up and get yourselves all set up. And I'm hoping we're fine with the audio remotely. Great, awesome. So our first one is called Baby Day.
All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. Oh, my mic's on. I'm Sarah Smith. I'm from Seattle Academy of Arts and Sciences, and I'm so excited to present to you today my favorite class called Baby Day. Okay, just a little bit of background. Oops, here we go. I get how it works now. I wanted to start before I start my class and just tell you a little bit about me because it's a little bit different than most of your backgrounds. I'm a high school teacher, and I got into psychology back in high school. It was so fun. I took an intro class and then AP class. So I would love to see a show of hands if you took psychology in high school. Wow. That's, I'd say, 20%? That's a high percentage based on my own experience and based on what I see now. But I was hooked. I loved it so much. I ended up studying psychology in college at Emory, got my BA, and then decided, you know what, I'm actually not going to study any more psychology. I want to be a teacher. So I ended up getting my teaching certification and then decided I don't want to do that either. I want to row competitively. So I moved to Seattle to train for rowing. Did that for 5 years, and when I retired from rowing, I got back to teaching. So I've actually been at Seattle Academy for 17 years now, most of the time teaching math and study skills, but 4 years ago, I proposed and got accepted to teach intro psychology. A year after I started teaching high school psychology, it was very popular. Kids wanted a second course. So now in my 4th year, I'm teaching 2 intro classes and 1 advanced class 3 times a year, because we have trimesters. I love it. It's so much fun. I also still teach math, but psychology has just been a blast. And the best class I teach, the one I'm most known for, is Baby Day. I've done it every trimester since I started 4 years ago, so that's 20-something now. And it's really fun for my students to see cognitive development and lots of other types of development, attachment theory, things like that in real time. Okay, I told you who I am. Now let me remind you who you are. You're high school students, so you're like 14 to 17 years old. You don't really know what the word psychology means. We're in week 2 of our intro class, so we've studied a little bit about Freud. I've taught you attachment theory, I've taught you a little bit about parenting styles, and we've talked a lot about Piaget. So you are coming into class today knowing it's baby day and knowing we're gonna do some cool tests on our kids. If we had all 75 minutes, which I usually do, we do lots of other things too, but I'm gonna focus just on 2 today. So be ready to yell out answers, raise your hand, please engage with me, it makes it much more fun. Okay, who was Piaget? Remember this guy? Good, yeah, you're all nodding. What good students. I mean, just last week you learned about him, but look at you. So he thought that all kids go through a series of cognitive development stages, and starting with sensory motor, 0 to 2, where we explore our world through our senses and our motor skills, pre-operational, where we start representing our world symbolically, and then concrete operational, which is kind of the science phase, where we start figuring out counting and how things work together like that. And then finally, formal operational, which you all are in. Good job. You're all doing abstract thinking. So the 2 tasks we're going to focus on today are object permanence and conservation of mass. Show of hands, anybody remember those 2 things? I just taught them to you. Good job. All right. So object permanence, knowing an object still exists when it's out of sight, typically develops around 9 months old. So does it matter if it develops at 12 months? What do you think? No, it doesn't matter. This is a typical average 9 months. It might develop earlier, might develop a little bit later, but it will develop. Has anybody seen the Onion video about object permanence in high schoolers? Yeah, so most high schoolers develop or graduate with object permanence. We can measure this with a toy and a blanket. I'm going to show our guest baby a toy and try and get her really interested in it, and then hide it right in front of her. If she looks for the toy, she has object permanence. And if she doesn't look for the toy, no object permanence, right? Should be pretty easy. All right, baby Maggie, come on up. Yeah, feel free to clap. This is so fun. I think here, let's do this. All right. Hi. So many of you have met Casey, and this is Casey's baby, Maggie. Maggie's 10 months old, right? I got you that. Do you like it? All right. So before we start, does anybody have a prediction about what Maggie is going to do? Yeah, so thank you. You think she's going to find it? Anybody think she's not? She might not. It doesn't really matter, but let's see what happens. All right. Usually I would make a student do this, but in the sake of time, I'm going to take it from you. She's really strong. Oh, gosh. Oh, look at that smile. Okay. She's like, that was so easy, but my guess is 2 months ago, she wouldn't have looked for it, right? Should we do it one more time? Is this your new favorite toy? Okay, woo. Ooh. Did that change it a little bit if I hide it behind my back? Yeah, what was different about it? Can I get a volunteer? I heard you say yes. What was different about hiding it behind my back? Go ahead.
They understood the first rule, rule A, but now you've got it in the second location, and she's like, it's not under the blanket. What do I do?
Yeah, so she's still developing those skills to get to where it is. And if you didn't all hear that, she had developed skill A, it's under the blanket, but not quite skill B, it's further away behind her back. Okay, can we all give a round of applause to Maggie Kenny? Thank you. You can have that pillowcase too, yeah. Is it, yeah. not needed for the next one. All right, nice work. So that is fun. It's always fun too to see kids change what we do. I often will ask my students, how should we improve that experiment? How should we change it the next time? Sometimes when I'm with my students and the baby, I hide the toy right under the blanket, everyone goes, oh, and then the baby looks at the kids, not the toy. So we talk a little bit about experimental design and start thinking about how we could improve how we're running our experiments. So second task we're going to work on today is conservation of mass, and I know you all are remembering this from when I taught it last week, but it typically develops between the ages of 5 and 7. That's a really big range, right? So it's fun to see kids that are a little bit younger and then a little bit older, and I have never in all my baby days of teaching had 2 big kids, but you all are so lucky because I got 2 big kids today. So we get to see how a 4-year-old reacts and how a 6-year-old reacts. I've used water, coins, Play-Doh, shampoo bottles. There's lots of ways to test this developmental task, and today we're going to use water and Hershey's Kisses. I'm not going to say too much about it because, as you know, 4- and 6-year-olds are pretty verbally competent. They're going to understand what I'm saying, but afterwards we'll debrief a little bit about what we said, or what we saw. All right, so next up is Elsie. Come on up. And Colt, during this, you should not watch. You don't have to watch. You can ignore us. Really good experimental design here. Okay, can you sit up on the chair? You want to sit up on your knees so you can see a little bit better? Okay, are you ready? You want to play a game? Yeah, all right. So, we're going to start with some water. Okay. Elsie, will you look at these 2 glasses of water and tell me which one? Do you think this one has more water, this one has more water, or do they have the same amount?
This one has more water.
Okay, this one has more water. Okay. Does this one have more water? Does this one have more water, or do they have the same amount?
This one has more.
Okay, this one has more. This might take a while to get to the main thing. All right, does this one have more water? Does this one have more water, or do they have the same amount?
This one has more.
Okay. I'm trying to get them to the same, so you tell me when you think they're the same. Does that look pretty good? Are they the same? Okay, she said, so I'm going to go with it. Okay, now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to pour this into here. Okay. Now, does this one have more water? Does this one have more water, or do they have the same amount?
This one has more water.
This one has more water. Okay, everybody see what she pointed to? Can you tell me why? Do you want to use the microphone? No, you don't want to. Okay. I'll just leave this. Why does this one have more water?
Because we poured it in.
Because I poured it in. All right, nice work, buddy. All right. Oh, wait, one more experiment. One more. Okay. Actually, let me get this back. All right, you want to do one more thing? Okay. So now we're going to use our handy-dandy Hershey's Kisses. Yeah, these might get eaten at the end. And I'm going to put them into 2 rows. Does this row have more kisses? Does this row have more kisses, or do they have the same amount?
They have the same amount.
How do you know? Okay, she said they have the same amount and no reason. All right. See what I did? Okay, does this row have more Hershey's Kisses? Does this row have more Hershey's Kisses, or do they have the same amount? This one has more? Why?
Because they put them in different directions.
I put them in a different direction. Nice. All right, high five, Elsie. That was so good. You did really well. And thank you, Phil, for bringing her. Okay, let's debrief. What just happened? Can I get a volunteer to tell us what you saw? All of you have been taking notes like crazy in your comp books because you're going to write thank you letters to all our guest babies later. Remember, you're my students. So you have your notes in front of you. What just happened?
When you
Yeah, so in her brain, the wider one had more, right? So do we think she has conservation of mass yet? Not yet, but that's totally developmentally appropriate, right? Yes, one more.
You didn't teach us this yet, but I saw secure attachment.
Oh, I did teach you. I did. I taught you secure attachment.
It was so protective.
That was so nice, yes. The reunion, we saw it. Yes, the reunion was good, yes. All right, thank you so much. And we have one more big kid, everybody. So let's welcome up. Colt is 6 years old. So much clapping, I love it. It just makes me happy. All right. And Adriana, his mom. Bye, see you in a bit. Okay. How you doing? Good. Did you all know that Colt had his birthday 2 days ago? Oh, they all clap for you. So Colt's 6 years old. Can I get a prediction of what we think, like yes for conservation of mass or no for conservation of mass? Yes. Yes, I hear yes. Say no's? No, maybe not, right? It could still be developing. So let's check it out. Okay, you ready? Play our game? All right. Does this glass have more water? Does this glass have more water, or do they have the same amount? That one has more? Whew, really making me work. Okay. Does this glass have more? Does this glass have more, or do they have the same amount? Okay, tell me when they're even. Whoop. Even? Now, which one has more? Okay, this is definitely going to make them even. Oop, spilled a little. How about that? Even? Even? Which one has more? Still? Okay. Even? It can be pretty close. Is that good? Okay, yay. Okay, so they're even. So now watch this, Colt. All right. Now, do you think this one has more, this one has more, or do they have the same amount? I think this one has more. Can you tell me why?
Because you put a different cup.
Because it's in a different cup, so there's more water in that cup now? Okay. So sometimes I'll ask students what we should change about our experiment or what we should try next, and they'll say, pour it back in. So ready? I'm going to pour this back in. Now does this one have more? Does this one have more? Or do they have the same amount? Same amount. It's like magic. Nice work. Good job. Okay. And last test. Do you like Hershey's Kisses? Yeah, me too. Okay, I'm going to make 2 rows. And I'm going to ask you, does this row have more? Does this row have more? Or do they have the same amount?
We have the same amount.
How do you know?
Because we both have 4.
Let's count it again. Let's try it. You can touch them if you want to. 5. So do they each have 5 or just one of them?
Both.
They both have 5. Okay. So now, when I do that, does this row have more? Does this row have more, or do they have the same amount?
We don't have the same amount.
They don't have the same amount. Why not?
Because one of them, because the 3 there and the 5 there.
There's 3 there and 5 there. What about these 2 on the end?
The only one.
Oh, okay. All right, that's a cool explanation. Everybody hear that? Yeah, okay, I can repeat it too. You did awesome. I've never heard that explanation. We're done. You can go back and hang out with your mom. Thank you so much. Oh, really cool. Say it louder. Oh, yeah, exactly. Alternate grouping. It was so good. He said that there were 3 in the front row and 5 in the back row, and the ones on the end didn't count. Yeah, so, yeah. Yep, statistically, they don't count, right? Oh, actually, I think I'm being asked to wait till the end for our one question. Is that what you're saying? Yes, okay. So, really quick to debrief. I know I'm a little bit over time. Well, actually, before I get to that, so what was cool about Colt that was a little bit different than Elsie, which I would normally ask you to figure out, is that he was using counting to figure out. So when things are quantifiable by number, it's a lot easier to get conservation of mass than when it's just water and volume. So often kids can do the counting before they can do the water, which is a cool skill to watch develop as well. All right, why should you bring live kids to your classes? I know a lot of you already do this, and you bring your own children and stuff, but I have done this a bunch of times, and it's always been so fun and so different than the time before. It's easier than you think. I usually just reach out to colleagues, and if I don't know anybody offhand with a 9-month-old and a 4-year-old, I'll send a big email to my whole faculty or my group of friends, and never had a problem bringing kids in. Students love it. This is the class that my students talk about the most. They come back from college and they say, oh, are you doing baby day again soon? You know, they remember us doing it. They remember the skills that I taught them and the different concepts that they learned at baby day. They'll talk about that for a long time. And the babies and the parents have a good time. I mean, hopefully you all had fun, but it's always fun to hear what they get from the students' questions and hear from them. And it's always unpredictable. I had never had a response like Colt's. That was so cool. And for those of you still teaching remotely or that always teach remotely, it's pretty easy on Zoom. This is a picture of my coworker, Zach, and his daughter, Tatum, the first fall that we were online with shampoo bottles, you know, doing it with my Zoom class. And it was really fun and easy. So I hope you will consider doing that. I'd love to hear your ideas if you have more ideas of what I should be doing with my guest babies and big kids in my classes, different ages, twins, all that fun stuff. And last slide, if you have questions or comments or ideas, come find me. I'm Sarah Smith. There's my contact info. A couple additional resources. I didn't put the onion video on there, but it's a really funny one. So look up the onion object permanence. And that's it. Thank you.
One question. Yes, anyone have a quick question? Yes. So our remote people can hear you. Yeah, I'll be right there. There we go.
So thank you for that. I've often struggled with whether or not the children understand the meaning of the word more. You know, does more mean bigger? Does it look bigger? Have we ever questioned whether they understand the word more?
Change it. I don't know, yeah. It's a great thing to think about.
Maybe ask them what does more mean to you.
Yeah, that's good. I think, from the kids that I've seen do the test, the kids who understand it totally get what the word more means, and the kids that don't quite have conservation of mass don't. And so oftentimes the kids can understand the counting, like if you're doing it with coins, they'll understand that there are more coins in the bigger row, but it's harder to get to that with volume. So, yeah, great. Thank you so much. You
Thanks
all were
so much.
terrific teenagers.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
Okay, so following kids, very tough act to follow. So thank you for the switch up in the order here. But what I'm kind of hoping is I can entertain you guys a little bit as well. I'm going to show you a very brief video clip, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about it. I don't want to ruin anything else, so that's as far as I'm going to go with it right now. But just to forewarn you, there were some technical issues that we had with the actual uploading of the clip here. So I'm using my backup resource here, which is going to YouTube. And you guys can actually go to YouTube as well to find this exact same clip, so it's always going to be available there. Around the room, you're going to see a handout. If you have one, great. If you don't worry about it. There is a copy of it under the Whova app, so you can actually look into that one as well. But I'm going to actually tell you a couple of different questions up here as well as we watch this. All right, so it doesn't seem to be on the screens. Okay, so I know a little bit hard to see, which isn't always a bad thing because when you're an eyewitness, you don't always see things clearly and perfectly. But I do want to go through and look at some of the questions on the sheet here. I'm not going to go through all of them. I know that there's 16 of them on here, but there are a couple that I want to highlight just really quickly here. The first one being this question about, who was at fault or responsible for the accident here. Now, typically in class, I might use an eye clicker and have them kind of choose the correct option up there, or I could just do it old school and have people raise their hands. So, how many said it's the taxi? Right? How many says it's the race car? How many said it's the cab? And how about the sedan? How about the Ford? Okay, so it's actually the cab, right? So you all saw the cab. And about this point in time, students give me really weird looks, like, what's the difference between a taxi and a cab? So I was at a talk earlier today where they said that you really shouldn't give snarky little comments to students, but I always do here. I say, you spell cab, C-A-B, and taxi, T-A-X-I. So obviously there's a difference between the two, right? But of course, then they take a step back and they kind of recognize just how bad this question really is, right? Because 4 of these options are actually correct. So the first one, the taxi, the cab, the sedan, Ford, they all apply here. So of course, when you're trying to interview somebody to get an idea about what they actually saw, if you have a question like this where there's multiple answers that might be correct, you're not going to get very useful information from that person. They may not understand the question, and whatever answer they do give you, you're not going to be able to use yourself. All right, so one of the problems here, multiple answers are correct here, so a very bad question. But I want to skip ahead to question number 3. Which car ran the red light? Yeah, at this point in time, students probably say it's the taxi, right? But of course, then they start thinking about it and but the taxi was behind the other car, so how could it run the red lights, but not the first car? But of course, the bigger problem with this question is that, I'm just kidding, no car ran the red light. It was actually green when they went through the stoplight here. But of course, you probably recognize this as a leading question. So at this point in time, I can go through and kind of talk about Elizabeth Loftus and her studies looking at how people can actually incorporate brand new information into their memory systems just based on the wording of the question that is asked to them. So we can get into a discussion about what would be a better way of going through and actually asking this question that isn't in that leading format. In miles per hour, how fast was the taxi driver going? Any guesses? Anybody think like 0 to 10, about 11 miles to 20 miles per hour? Faster than that? Remember, he's coming from a dead stop at a stoplight, right? But of course, one thing I always do here is I tell the students, well, look at your neighbor's paper. What did their question ask? Now, for those of you who have the handout in front of you, you actually have a different version of it on the back side. So how do the 2 versions differ? Yep, so in version A, it actually asks the question, how fast was it going when it smashed in the other car? And in version B, it says, how fast was it going when it hit the other car? And again, going back to Elizabeth Loftus, she kind of found that people overestimated speed when they got the smashed verb than they did when they got the hit word. So again here, the way that you kind of phrase those questions can have a dramatic impact on the way that people actually recall that particular event. Just get highlight a couple more up here. Number 5, did you see a passenger in the backseat of the taxi in the victim car? Who says yes? And who says no? And who says yes to one version but not the other? Yeah, so we're actually looking at what we call a double-barreled question here, where we're asking more than one question at a time. So the answer is yes, there was a passenger in the backseat of the victim car, but not the taxi. But whatever answer they give you to this question is going to be indecipherable because you're asking 2 questions at the same time. Was the front license plate of the taxi in the middle of the grill, driver's side of the grill, or the passenger side of the grill? Yeah, this one's a little bit kind of hard to think about as well. Maybe we can go into memory processes, kind of talk about the cognitive interview, trying to reinstate context, things along those lines up there. But there's another issue with this question that is even worse. Now think about your answer options here. We have left of the grill, middle, and right of the grill. How well does that align with the question? Not very well, right? What if you think it's on the left of the grill? Well, from whose perspective? Are you the driver in the car, or are you somebody who's looking at the car from the front? And again, so those question options here get really kind of bad, and it's going to be really hard for them to understand exactly where those questions lie here. All right, this question is seemingly kind of innocent. Doesn't seem all that bad up here. How many passengers were in the victim car? Who says 1? Who says 2? Who says 3? Who says 4? Who couldn't see the video well enough to actually determine it? A couple of you out there. All right, so this is one of those questions where I always get a lot of pushback from students because they raise their hand and say that there's 3 passengers in the victim car, and I tell them, but there's only 2. And it takes them a while to go through and figure out that some of them are including the driver as a passenger, and others are not. So of course, this opens up a dialogue about focusing on pilot testing. You know, if you see answers really diverging among your participants, you might have to go back and figure out, you know, why are some people seeing it one way and others a different way? And that might kind of help you go back and refine this question a little bit later on down the road up here. All right, about how old was the driver of the taxi? Anybody seem clearly enough to tell? Anybody thinking 0 to 10? Yeah, I'm hoping not there, right? How about 10 to 20? 20 to 30? 30 to 40? Okay, so for those of you who think he's 30, which answer option did you select? Yeah, it's another issue up here, right? The answers actually overlap here. So we can have a discussion looking at the idea of mutual exclusive options up here. And one thing I always do with students is say, how would you rewrite this question to improve it? And of course, they catch on pretty quick saying, you know, 0 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, etc. on down the road here. All right, was the animal that crossed the road moments before the accident a dog or a cat? Okay, so this is another one of those questions where I ask them to look at their neighbor sheets because the answer options differ just a little bit depending on which sheet you actually got here. So if you're looking at answer B or answer option B up here, or I'm sorry, version A, you're going to see two different options. There's cat or dog, right? But if you look at the other version, you actually have the I don't recall and there was no animal options, you know, which again gives some insight into students, you know, about how you should ask questions and how you don't want them to just guess, especially with a leading question like this. You give them the opportunity to say that they didn't see an animal or, you know, there was no way that they could actually recall it. And just finally here, which headlight was destroyed, not shining on the taxi after it drove away? Yeah, again here, leading question. Both headlights were actually shining brightly when they walked out. All right, and this was the final one, also a leading question here. Asked, was the victim car windshield completely shattered or just cracked near the driver's side mirror? Windshield was perfectly intact up here. So this is actually a really easy activity to do in any class. And I have a bunch of different follow-up questions I usually do with them. You know, I'll ask them to choose one of these questions and go through and tell me what's wrong with that question, first of all. And then second, tell me how they would fix it. So rewrite the question in a way that's a little bit more valid. And then I can ask them to think about how this demonstration would impact their opinions about a wide variety of different psychological topics, things like eyewitness interviews, human cognition, survey questions. I've done this same activity in a wide variety of different classes. I've done it in Intro to Psychology, my social psychology class when I talk about eyewitnesses. I do it in my research methods when we talk about surveys and instrument development. My law and psychology classes as well, memory instruments and assessments. So it's a really nice, kind of easy, quick demonstration that you can do that really does go back and entertain students quite a bit here. And it's pretty flexible there too as well. You can do it in a relatively short amount of time, or you can use a whole class period and go through and have discussion groups about what they should be doing better in terms of developing their questions. All right, so the handout does have the timestamp for that movie if you're interested in looking at on your own. And you can actually download these documents from the HUVA if you ever want to include these as well. So, thank you.
Great, thank you so much. So let's go to our, anyone remotely have a question? No? Any questions here? We'll take one question. But it has to be in a good format.
I'll take bad questions too.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you.